So Bitcoin is sitting at a level where most people historically make the biggest mistake. They sell. But if you look back at previous cycle data, this exact area has repeatedly been the don't sell here zone. Look, when Bitcoin came back to this level in the past, it tricked the entire market. Institutions absorbed the liquidity. Buyers stepped back in and price eventually exploded to a new all-time high. Now, fast forward to 2026, we're seeing the exact same structure forming again. Now, in today's video, I'm going to break down why this don't sell here zone is so important, the breakout happening on the daily time frame, what could happen next on the 3-day structure, and the trades I'm currently watching on ETH and Link. So if you enjoy the content, make sure you are subscribed, and all of my trade setups, entries, stop loss updates, and live trade management is free in the Telegram group. The link is in the description below. This is Bitcoin on Point. Let's break down the content. Now, we're going to begin with today's macro news. As always, there is some very interesting developments happening around the market. First off, President Donald Trump recently commented on Bitcoin, saying that if Bitcoin is considered money, it doesn't make sense that people have to pay capital gains tax to just use it. And he described a perfect example for everyday purchases like buying coffee. Now, this is the kind of discussion that is extremely important. It shows that Bitcoin is increasingly being recognized at the highest political levels. Now, at the same time, some analysts are pointing out that if Bitcoin follows this same trajectory, it could follow suit with gold after its institutional adoption. Now, looking at the charts here, you can see that Bitcoin is following near enough identical to the gold structure prior to its breakout. Now, if Bitcoin does follow suit, we could potentially see Bitcoin reaching levels of around $600,000 in the coming years. Again, numbers game, take it or leave it, but it's hard to ignore the structure here. Now, the biggest development today is actually coming from institutional activity. Reports are showing that BlackRock has started aggressively buying Bitcoin and Ethereum ahead of today's emergency FOMC announcement. So, according to the data that's actually circulating in the market, institutions are accumulating millions of dollars worth of crypto every few minutes. And that's not even exaggerating. Now, look, whether this is positioning ahead of some bullish news, right, or simply strategic accumulation, there's one thing that's very clear here. Large institutions are still heavily involved in this market. Now, whenever we see this kind of aggressive institutional activity combined with strong technical levels, it usually means the market's preparing for a major move, right? Now, the next few days, could become extremely important for Bitcoin. And with that wrapping up the macro, let's dive into the technicals. And we're going to begin with Bitcoin on the monthly time frame. And this is the chart that's printing that historic bullish reversal signal. Now, when we actually scope out this fractal in a little more detail, Bitcoin in 2026 looks very similar to the structure in 2021 for a few reasons. Now, the first off is being that Bitcoin had a major level of resistance in 2020 at roughly 13 to 20K that it needed to break out of. Now, when Bitcoin did viciously break through, it then ran up to the 2021 all-time highs and created a major level of resistance at roughly 70K. Now, since those highs, this is where Bitcoin corrected in a bear market in 2022 to turn the previous all-time highs into support. And then when it did that, this is where the buyers stepped in, that institutional demand came through, and Bitcoin ran to new all-time highs in 2025. So what I'm trying to say is that this was a major level of resistance for Bitcoin in the past, and this don't sell here signal represented itself or revealed its hand when Bitcoin eventually came back to turn the prior highs into support. This is where the buyers stepped in. It created the next leg, the next run to that 2025 high. Now, fast forward to 2026, we've got this major correction for Bitcoin, bringing it back down to the 2021 highs. So if this signal replicates from the prior cycle lows and Bitcoin can defend 50K, this might be gearing up for the next major expansion. And this is where that don't sell here signal is again showing itself. It looked fearful in the past when we flipped the previous all-time highs into support, but buyers stepped in and the trajectory continued its expansion. It looks fearful now in 2026 when Bitcoin is back down on its 2021 highs. But as long as 50K is defended, this is the signal. Don't sell here, guys, because the expansion could be around the corner. Now let's wrap this up and take it into Bitcoin on the daily time frame. Now on the daily time frame, zooming in a little bit more here, this is where we're actually getting the breakout on the lower time frames. We had a major level of resistance for Bitcoin inside this sort of symmetrical triangle, which it was coiling up between sort of early February all the way into sort of the first few days of March. And we did break through a major level of resistance at 68K. We initially took out the resistance of the triangle. We also turned that 68K level into support. And then yesterday, Bitcoin got a major bullish engulfing candle. Now we do have 72K resistance above, which is what we're running into this second. We've discussed this on the channel multiple times. And if Bitcoin does see rejection and fail to break through, this is where we could see a pullback in the short term back to 68K to once again turn it into support to build up the liquidity before going for the next major breakout. Now, the next target we're sort of looking at is up to sort of 76 to 77K, and I'll break that down in a second. So the structure is showing a breakout on the daily time frame. We are running into a key level of resistance. A short-term pullback before a continued breakout is something that we shouldn't really shy away from. Now, let's zoom out. So we've gone from the monthly into the daily. Now we're going to go sort of a little bit in between both and look at the 3-day time frame. And this is where potentially, hear me out, potentially we may be seeing the longs getting trapped. Now, the only reason I suggest this is based on prior data for Bitcoin. Now, when we did tap out at 126K, we had this sharp correction. Then Bitcoin consolidated for a few months, had this relief rally up to 96K, and this is where everybody would have been getting excited, but it rejected at a previous level of support and then continued into a deeper macro correction. Now we've bottomed out in February at roughly sort of 59K. We're once again seeing the same sort of setup. We're seeing relief that could be trapping the longs. It could be trapping people into thinking that this is already where Bitcoin's going to get that major breakout. But if we do run up to 76K, which is a previous level of support from sort of March, I think in April of 2025, and meet it as resistance, this is where we could see that continued sell pressure back down to 2024 demand, which sits at 50K. So, you know, somewhere between 70 to 50K is ideally the area we're looking for that bottom zone. And the daily is witnessing a breakout. Sorry, that's not the daily. This is the daily. The daily is witnessing a breakout. But again, if we are to witness short-term pullbacks and only push up to 76K from that and meet that as resistance, this is where we need to be careful. It's a previous level of support and it could be met as resistance. Again, we do have 63K weekly support defending us, but that demand zone at 2024 does wait to be hit if we see rejection in the coming weeks. So that's kind of Bitcoin wrapped up. On the monthly time frame, it's the don't sell here signal potentially showing itself above 50K. On the 3-day, we are seeing significant relief, but there's resistance above that could see the continuation back down to 50K. And on the daily, this is where we are seeing the breakout, but short-term pullbacks could be the signal before getting that expansion up to higher 70s. So now with Bitcoin wrapped up, let's take this over into our trading environment. And we're going to look at ETH on the 4-hour. Now, this is a new potential trade setup. We've seen some strength in ETH. It's building these high-low formations. However, it is running into sort of 2.1K/2.2K, which is a major level of resistance from back in early February. So with that being said, and expecting Bitcoin to come back for a short-term pullback, it might be wise here to wait for ETH to also see some short-term depreciation to come back into a major bullish order block to look for an entry. So our entry currently sits waiting at $1,988. If we do get that pullback and Ethereum can sort of hold these higher low formations, this might offer the perfect entry to look for the push up to 2.2K. So our TP is sitting at 2.2, and we're simply waiting now if Bitcoin does reject at 72K for ETH to also come back to a higher low somewhere in this support block and demand zone to potentially look for that execution. So this is a simple trade setup. We haven't got the limit order just yet, or we haven't placed an execution. We're waiting for the potential. Now with ETH sitting on the horizon, let's look at Chainlink, because this is a trade so far that's going extremely well. And we were very close yesterday, guys, very close to actually hitting our TP target. We were a few cents shy. Now what we're actually seeing is Link did get a pullback, and we're hoping that it does respect this bullish order block, right? And we're actually seeing positive relief off of it in the last sort of, in the last sort of 8 hours. So ETH, getting them mixed up. Link is actually very close to pushing to that TP target. And if we get it, fantastic, we've secured it. If not, and we do start to come back even further, again, we are sort of positioned in a nice place right now. We may think about bringing our stop loss up, but until that happens, the structure looks great, and we're looking to reach our TP target, which does sit at $9.69. So Ethereum is simply waiting for execution. Link is going fantastically well. And to summarize this, guys, let's look at the profits precision dashboard. This is where we're taking our account from $10,000 to $100,000. We've got $1,100 in profit, 10 total trades, and a 60% win rate thus far. Guys, you get a 30 days free access to this platform. It manages all of your trades in one place. It's really a fantastic platform. And if you do want to keep up with our own executions and our trading environment, everything is shared live in the free Telegram, the stop losses, the trade entries, the update, the management, and the link for that is in the description. So make sure you click on that. You don't want to miss out. It's where all the fun is where all the fun is unfolding. Let's put it that way. So to wrap up today's video, Bitcoin on the monthly is showing a don't sell here signal above 50K that in the past has represented major opportunity before expansion. On the 3-day, we are seeing potential extension here to higher targets, but it could be trapping the longs before continuation back to 50K. The daily is showing us the breakout. We've got imminent resistance at 72K. Pulling back here may offer an opportunity to continue the breakout, and that ties into waiting for ETH to come back so we can get a decent entry, looking for a long. And then Link is already in execution, waiting for that TP target that was very close to being hit yesterday. I hope you've enjoyed the content, guys, from Chartnet. I hope you've enjoyed the content. Until next time, peace out.